Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Tom Walsh, and I'm joined by Dr. Stuart Hoover today. And we are excited to talk about something that I was never taught about in veterinary school, and I think that it's crazy. Fulvic acid, which is not something you put on the car to get bugs off the front. It's actually something that's really cool. It's a powerful way to support the health at a cellular level, and it does a number of different things, but I think for a brief introduction, just right off the top, Dr. Hoover, tell me what fulvic acid does
Okay.
for our viewers.
Well, I appreciate you having me on today, Doc. And yeah, a lot of people, you're right. They probably never heard of fulvic acid, first time today. So let me just real quick kind of let people know what it is, where it comes from. Fulvic acid is an organic compound that actually comes from the soil, from plants that have decomposed in the soil. So, like in normal farming practices, they would plow the fields, kind of till back in the unused vegetation, and that would create what we call humate. And out of that, we would get these incredible little molecules that are called humic and fulvic. And these molecules would draw minerals and vital elements up out of the soil into the plant. So they would come up through the plant root system, and that would bring all this wealth of nutrition and trace minerals into the plant. Well, we would consume it, and guess what? From a cellular level, that same thing happened in our body. But over the years, because of commercial farming practices today, they don't rest fields, they're using herbicides and pesticides. And what's happened is we basically have destroyed this activity in the soil. So we're no longer getting the trace minerals into the plants and other elements that we once did because fulvic doesn't exist anymore. So
Yeah.
these little molecules, I like to say, are nature's best transporters of getting things into our cell. If we think about our body, in our pet's body, we're made up of trillions of cells. So they're little energy generators.
Yep.
And these cells have to be charged, they have to be nourished, they have to be hydrated in order to produce energy and detox and run effectively. And in a nutshell, fulvic does several very key things. It helps to improve the energetic capacity to the cell membrane. So think of it almost like a battery charger on the cell. It helps to maintain a higher energy capacitance. It helps to deliver nutrients into the cell, including trace minerals. And I was doing some interesting research on pets, and trace mineral deficiency is rampant in our pets today.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
we're just not getting, they're just not getting it in their foods either. So, helping with the trace mineral support and also intercellular hydration is
Hmm.
important. So, think of it as this really wonderful energy support system that nature made for us to take. So it's not like we're introducing a drug or, some crazy supplement that people are just, coming up with.
Yeah, I thank you. You got it down to the dirt level, which I
Right.
love that, and that's wonderful. When I was coming through vet school, um, we had a nutrition class, and it taught us about calories. It taught about proper food. It talked about weight loss and how to calculate the percent reduction so that you could healthily help animals lose weight. And it talked about, especially in livestock and horses and that kind of thing, how you needed to have certain vitamins and minerals in the hay and storage and stowage and all of that good stuff. But to be frankly honest, unless you were super interested in that,
Hmm.
it was kind of one of those courses that you just go, okay, yeah, great. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
But dogs eat dog food and horses eat hay,
Right.
and we'll just keep moving on. They did not place the full level of significance
Hmm.
on how much it matters to what we put in our bodies. We're seeing a resurgence of this in our country, for the first time in what, 30, 40, 50 years, to where people are actually paying attention to
Hmm.
what is going into their bodies.
Right.
And I see it in my practice all the time to
Hmm.
where owners are making similar questions about what they're putting into their dog's body.
Absolutely. We were talking before we got on the show today, and I was in the functional medicine field for 30 years, and it was so interesting that when people would learn that I could offer some advice for their pets, the conversation would shift. Their pet was having some challenges, maybe they were diagnosed with some metabolic issue or inflammation. And we would introduce them to Fulvic, and it was just so simple. It's like, let's just add this to their water and watch what happens. And is crazy. Just,
Yeah.
within days or weeks where people are calling me up going, my dog's energy's better, they're sleeping better, anxiety levels down.
Mm.
Coat is something that we see a lot of, which
Yep.
obviously is directly connected to so much of the GI disturbance. And fulvic itself is a wonderful prebiotic. It
Mm.
actually does a lot of wonderful support in the microbiome in the gut for our pets. And just like people, probably 80% of these chronic ailments begin in the gut.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. But you're right, we're just not kind of taught about this stuff. And this I have found has really just been a game changer in my practice because I was one of those guys years ago that somebody would come in. I had a product room that had 300 products in it,
Hmm.
orchestrating and managing all these things. And I really had to kind of sit back and ask myself, are we really getting to the root cause of issues or are we just managing? Because you know this in medicine today that so much of the weight is put on management. It's almost like when people think the symptoms reduced or gone, they're healthy.
Yep.
And that's not health. That's just being managed. And
That's exactly right.
yeah.
Exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. We have been conditioned in a microwave society that everybody wants a pill, wants an
Hmm.
instant cure. And so to respond to that, drugs are not bad
Right.
inherently. They're not
And
bad. They help
there's
a
a
lot of,
place for them.
but there's a place for them. But we have gotten into this place to where, okay, well, I want something to fix it right away. So and if you are broken or
Mhm.
deficient at the cellular level,
Right.
you're not going to fix it
No.
with a pill. You're not going to fix it with overnight. You have to repair at a cellular level. We could talk doctor to doctor all the time about cellular voltage channels and
Hmm.
ATP and all that
Right.
good stuff. That unless you're in the industry, that really doesn't mean a lot to anybody else. But what the key areas that fulvic acid does impact is, like you mentioned, the gut system, the
Hmm.
immune system, coat and skin,
Hmm.
joints,
Hmm.
mobility, and energy. And also, it allows for hydration.
Right.
And that would be an easy one to skip over. You already talked about some of the other ones, but hydration is so important
Hmm.
because we don't realize it as humans. We've been told to drink water and blah, 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 and do all that stuff. But everything from the clothes that we wear to the products that we put on our skin to the amount of time that we spend in fluorescent lights, blue light, and also out in the sun,
Hmm.
all of it saps our hydration.
Right.
All of it takes away. And if you think about it, your dog and your horse is under a lot of those same conditions.
Exactly.
And it we are taught that the cells are the cells. They're the same in humans as well as they are in dogs. So the logic is we've been ignoring this idea about hydration in animals. The
Hmm.
question veterinarians always ask is, are they drinking well? And they go, yeah, I think so. But in reality, unless there's been a problem, chances are that owner hasn't paid attention to how much that dog's drinking at all.
Exactly.
Is that bowl empty all the time? Is it always, oh, it's hot day today, so that bowl is already empty?
Right.
Is that going on more often than not? Hydration can be such a key facilitator to making everything else run. As I tell my clients here, it is quite literally the engine oil that helps the engine, and if without it, your engine starts to break down immediately.
Absolutely. And a lot of times we may be getting water into the body, but it's not actually getting into the cell.
Yep.
And I found that in practice through, different measurements. We would use bioimpedance measurements, for instance, to measure extracellular water. And, people are like, man, I am just drinking incredible amounts of water. How can I be dehydrated? Well, a lot of it does come down to how that cell membrane's functioning, and that's what Fulvic does such a wonderful job, just enhancing its function. So we're not only getting those nutrients in, but we're actually getting hydration in. And I agree with you. I've read study after study that, hydration studies where people after, a week or 2 weeks, 80% of their chronic pain's gone. I used to tell people that in the clinic all the time. They'd come in, just, man, everything hurts, I'm inflamed.
Yep.
And I'm like, how much water do you drink? Start paying attention to it. And then we'll add fulvic, and all of a sudden it's like, their whole world changes. But I'm totally agree with, I think water, we just overlook it. It's too simple.
We certainly do.
Yeah.
In your work with dogs, over because I know that we were talking off camera about how you start talking to somebody about their own human problems, and they immediately divert it and say, "Well, tell me about Fluffy. Could
Yeah.
could we do this in your work?" Kind of adjunct work with dogs. What are the most consistent or dramatic improvements that you've seen?
I think it was so interesting how people will divert those resources towards their animals. I'm one of those as well. Would do it in
Oh
a
yeah,
heartbeat. But we would see, within weeks, certainly, I think the most apparent things would be energy, kind of vitality returning, which
hmm
I think a lot of that is just controlling that inflammation, and also, helping with blood sugar regulation, which I know is a big issue. We have schnauzers. We're constantly kind of monitoring that. And that's one of the things I found in doing blood testing, especially in humans, that we see A1C levels, which is kind of that 3 month look
absolutely,
at
yeah.
blood sugar
hmm
leveling out. And again, I think it's just the impact of the cell functioning better, utilizing insulin and glucose better, and taking
hmm
that stress, which in itself can cause inflammation. So I think energy, vitality, less stress, and I think a big one we got a lot of reports on is coat improvement.
Yeah,
People
that's
just
definitely something.
noticing,
That's
yeah,
something that they can see. Yeah, right away. That's great.
absolutely, yep,
Yeah, that's fantastic. Um, Switching over to horses,
yep,
I know that fulvic acid helps with performance and recovery,
right.
which are probably the two most things that I think about, even when I think about horses. Like, can it make them work, be more efficient and work harder? But what else can it do?
Well, I think it's not only helping with energy and stamina, but I do think it helps with recovery. You're talking fairly large animals
hmm
that are under just a lot of stress just getting around.
Yeah,
And
yeah, for sure.
I have worked with quite a few people in the equestrian field, and again, we get back to simple things like improved hydration.
Mm.
I've worked with people that have been like in the dressage industry
Yep,
and competing, and they notice that their horses recover quicker. So, one of the things through competition and training and things, we're seeing better recovery. And of course, to me, that's going to equate to less injury.
yeah,
Anytime that we can improve and hydrate and just improve energy production and that recovery, then we're also really reducing the injury. Because that's one of the things that I think when I talk to horse owners so much about is, that fear of injury
for
and things
sure.
that are going on.
For sure. And if you are in the horse world, you know how expensive it is to keep your horse healthy. And what's amazing about this that really struck me was that something so simple can affect so many systems,
Right.
and it's not crazy expensive. Certainly
No.
not compared to what horse folks will do for their horses,
Oh, yeah.
with the farrier, and then you've got the chiropractor, and then you've got, all of those things. And so again, it's all boils down to starting at the building blocks, starting at that cell level,
Right.
and letting the body do what it should do on its own.
Well, we're truly getting to what I call that foundational health. We hear the term functional a lot, but I even go beyond that and like to classify this more as foundational because there are things they're absolutes. They have to be done. And I've kind of found that Fulvic kind of fits in that category is that absolute because you're right, it touches so many things. When I look at our body, we're cells, we're tissues, we're organs, and we're systems.
Yep.
And so many times we're up here dealing with a system or organ dysfunction, because that's what's apparent, that's what we see, but it all originated from poor cellular function. It's a slow process, but it just trickles its way up. So we have to, think about in our minds, what are we doing foundationally, to
Mhm.
keep these cells functioning so we get that trickle up healing process. And that way we can not only obtain, but maintain better health ongoing. And you're right, this is so easy to do and inexpensive. We're talking about adding drops to water.
Yeah.
It can't get any simpler than that.
You're exactly right. I actually happen to be drinking some right now. It turns it brown, makes it look like down here in the South we say sweet tea, but that's what it looks like. But what's amazing about it is it's odorless and tasteless.
Right,
You do not recognize any difference in the way it changes the taste. And I've got my dog on it, and well, dogs will drink out of a dirty puddle in a heartbeat. So it's
right.
kind of, I think it encourages them to drink. It looks more natural to them.
Well, I hear this all the time. Dogs can't talk to us, but they'll certainly seek things. We wonder why are they eating grass or drinking out of the dirty water? Maybe there's minerals they're lacking
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
And that's the
Absolutely.
beauty, and that's what I found with this is I've yet to have, one of my clients tell me when my pet wouldn't drink the water this was in. They love it because they know they're getting those trace elements and minerals in there. They know it's
Yeah,
just innate in them.
yeah, I think you're exactly right. He did not hesitate when first put it in there, and my first reaction was like, "Gosh, I don't know if he's going to go for this." He went right for it and said, "No problem." That brings up interesting thoughts about dosing. We've been talking about dogs and putting some drops in a water bowl, but horses are a whole different deal. Are we going to have to buy this stuff in a 50-gallon vat, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's 1.5 milliliters, I think, per 100 pounds is what we've put it at. So it's not that expensive. I know they're looking at, especially at Resona Health with their
Hmm.
product, looking at maybe doing it in a larger thing. But even the delivery system now is not that out of line to use
Yeah.
there. So
I think that it is one of those things to where when you get used to using it, which doesn't take very long, just a
right,
few days. I've been on it a couple of weeks now, and um, then it becomes to where you're, especially on a clear bottle like that, you're reminding yourself, oh, my water's not brown. I
right.
needed to go change that kind of
That's a
thing.
good, yeah,
Yeah, and so I've noticed the same thing with my dog's bowl when he gets down, and it's in a stainless steel bowl, and when I start seeing to where it looks almost clear going through, I'm going to go add some more. So
right.
I think that's great. I think that brings up some safety questions to
Yeah.
where okay, we've talked about all the great things that it does. Do we have any? Are we worried about the liver or the kidneys or how these things are cleared through? Or are we going to see any negative results?
Absolutely not. One of the other beauties of fulvic is it's a bidirectional antioxidant, which means it can donate or accept electrons. I know that's a little technical, but basically what I like to tell people is when it delivers all this good stuff to the cell,
Hmm.
it's kind of like an empty dump truck that can pick up all the garbage
Love
and all
that.
the metabolic waste and heavy metals. So it has a very unique ability to help support the detox systems in the body, these exit mechanisms, like the kidneys. I've had people in renal failure,
Mm,
literally renal failure, come out of it using humic and fulvic, especially
amazing.
fulvic. So it's great for the kidneys, it's great for the liver. Again, Doc, when you think about supporting the body from the cell level up to healthier tissues, organs, and systems. There really isn't anything that this would not really support and enhance. And we don't have to worry about the detox reactions a lot of times that people have if they're using a specific like detox supplement
Hmm.
that may, you know, it's like I tell people, it's like you're kind of stirring all the muck up in a pond, but you still have these exit mechanisms not working very effectively.
Hmm.
So we're binding and we're supporting. So I really don't have any concerns with people using this or any cautions really on it. But like anything, you know, it never hurts to just even introduce a little bit in the beginning.
I
And
agree.
we're, you know, a little goes a long way. I like to say it with Fulvic. So.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We mentioned the folks over at Resona Health,
Uh-huh.
and we're in love with the Vibe. The Vibe is a PMF device that, if you haven't heard about it, go check it out. But if I use it every day in my practice, my rehabilitation practice, every single dog gets it, and I see dramatic results. Everything from lowered anxiety
Hmm.
to inflammation and pain relief to just really amazing results. And it also develops an amazing synergy with some of the other modalities that we use.
Hmm.
For example, like laser, I get a much better efficiency out of my class 3B laser, and it helps to deliver that inflammation and pain reduction throughout the body, in addition to some other modalities that I use. You know, when we're talking about that synergy,
Hmm.
PMF and is opening voltage channels as well.
Correct.
So even though that's a little nerdy for some folks here, let's talk a little bit about how PMF and fulvic acid work together.
Well, it's incredible. When I met Mark Fox and we were talking about the vibe, because I was introduced to PEMF like a lot of people. I had a pet that had horrible separation anxiety that we adopted. And I was just running out of things to do. I did not want to medicate this dog. And I started reading about the impact of PEMS and helping settle the nervous system down. And it was remarkable. And I started introducing Fulvic along with it, and it just enhanced the whole process. So
Hmm.
Mark and I just, we're nerding out one day talking
Right.
about, PEMF helping with cellular voltage and cellular membrane improvement. And I had worked with a lot of energy practitioners over the years using various forms of PEMF, and they all reported the same thing. It's like we're just seeing quicker, better, lasting results with this.
Hmm.
And it makes sense. We're just again hitting that foundational side of things, and anything we can do to help improve cellular function, it's going to work its way up and touch everything.
I agree completely. You know, I in my time with it and also dealing with PMF as well, it kind of struck me that fulvic acid could be a cornerstone of proactive veterinary care.
I
How do
would
you
agree.
you would agree with that? That's where it hit me, is that from the very beginning, if we start changing the way these cells are operating, everything's going to be more efficient. The body, and just like you said, all of the levels are going to start being more efficient and working together and working for things instead of working against.
Absolutely. And it's just so simple. And the body's intelligent. It knows what to do if we support it the right way. And that's what I love about Fulvic and even coupling it with like the vibe. And it's just so easy to do. And we know that we're doing the right thing. We're supporting the foundation of the body. That's the target.
So, there, just like anything else that is good in the medical world, instantly there are copycats
Oh yeah.
out there that is suspect for poor quality,
Right.
or maybe even not even delivering what they're saying they're delivering. And never has it ever been more prevalent than the supplement industry.
Yeah.
Supplement
Well,
industry is not regulated, and so therefore, um, we hear horror stories in the medical field all the time about somebody cooking up something and putting it in a bottle and selling it for whatever. And how do you know what they are? And then when they do they do analysis on it, you're finding out it's got all kinds of cyanide and God knows what else in there.
Right.
And how does this fulvic acid differ from, let's say, what you could find on Amazon?
Well, you're absolutely right. I've been in this field for 30 years. I've seen everything come and go. And I was introduced to Fulvic 15 years ago when it was really just kind of starting to emerge in the market. And immediately you start seeing all the stuff being imported from overseas. And so, you really need to think about what you're putting in your body
Mhm.
and work with reputable companies. Resona, I can tell you, you've worked with Mark. When we first talked about it, that's the first question he has is where do we go to find the best of the best?
Yep.
And that's what we did. It's a US source product. It's third party tested. That's so important. It's not just anecdotal stuff or somebody doing some in-house thing. This is being tested by a third party source for purity, toxicity, micro, activity, all this stuff. So that's a great question to ask because I tell people a lot of times Amazon's not your best place to shop for supplements because you may even think you're buying
Yep.
something from that company
Oh
and
yeah.
they're copycatting labels and things like that. So it's best to go to the source. And you know what? Ask for the testing.
Yeah.
Ask for the assays. I think that's very important, and a good company will be transparent and share that with you.
I agree. I agree. I think that um, we need more clinicians standing up saying, "I've read the reports. I vouch for this,"
Hmm.
to kind of help cut through the noise.
Right.
Because there's folks out there that are trying their best to get something for themselves or something for their pet or both,
Right.
and they're trying to make good decisions, but they're getting confused because Aunt Sally had three dogs that she's the dog expert in the family, and she says one thing, and then I go on Facebook and it says something else, and
Right.
trying to sort through that is very difficult for owners, and it's very confusing.
Well, I
So
hope I hope people can at least walk away. You have poured so much time and resources into what you do, and having such good success with taking, I think, more of that, foundational support and approach with your pets that you work with out there. For 30 years, people have come to me because they're looking for a better way.
yep,
That I don't want to just have to be managed. I really want to take some ownership. And I love what you said about, being able to do something for myself and my pet. Because, this is something that's going to help the whole family. And I consider the pets our family.
for sure.
It's not like you've got to go down a whole separate road. We all can kind of share because, like we said, we're all very similar when it comes down to that cellular makeup, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh man, this has been great. This has been great. To kind of recap, fulvic acid reconnects animals to natural cell support
Hmm.
that modern farming really has removed from us. And the good Lord made it in the ground and supplied it and allowed it to happen. And unfortunately, the chemicals we use and the way that we do things has taken it away. So to find a way to where we can get back to that is amazing, and especially that it's easy. You don't have to take something that tastes awful or stinks or stains your fingers or anything like that. So, and the benefits of fulvic acid. And this is not just fly by night. You've got a career for over 30 years
Hmm.
dealing with this, seeing the benefits in gut health and skin and coat changes, joint hydration, energy. It really is one of those things to where when you start to hear about it, you kind of go, it's too good to be true. It
It,
can't
it
be that
almost sounds that
simple.
way.
It
Yeah.
really it really baffles you. But when you apply the medical knowledge that you and I both have to it and realize that, wait a minute, yeah, this is actually affecting it down on the right cellular level. It really is a powerhouse. It's a game changer.
It's a total game changer, and it's a shame it's only been around forever, and we're just kind of hearing about it. People, it's so funny. People ask me, how long does this last?" I'm like, "Well, it's already millions of years old, so we don't have to worry about it." But that's kind of important. You don't have to worry about it expiring, but I truly believe it's game changer, especially for pet health, because I know people will go to the ends of the earth like myself
Hmm.
to do anything we can do for our animals, and they can't just sit and have that conversation with us. So I think that the worst thing is to not move on something like this, knowing that there is something so simple, easy we can do to help support them and show them the love that they deserve.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today. Um, Thank you, Dr. Hoover. And we want to give a big shout out to Resona Health and the work that they've done to put this in a bottle and make it available, and also guarantee that quality,
Mhm.
and that we know what we get when we take it. And I really appreciate your time. But more than that, I appreciate your attention to the detail, because it's something as a clinician we that often gets left out. So clinician to clinician, I want to thank you for your years of dedication, because it's real easy to fly by night with whatever the whim of the latest thing is. We see it in veterinary medicine all the time, and oh, this we've got a new drug and it's going to solve the world and do all this and do and everybody jumps on the bandwagon, and then you sometimes have to jump back off a little bit and go, hey, wait a minute, that might be doing a little bit more work, harm than it is good. You've stayed the course with this because you've seen the benefits, and it's just a real privilege to talk to you.
Well, Doctor, thanks so much for having me and getting this message out and doing the great work you're doing. And I look forward to carrying this conversation further.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks again.
Take care.
All right.